So we're looking at the period of May 18th to May 31st, 2019. And looking at this period of time, we have a highlight of a very powerful full moon. We have the sun moving into Gemini and some other things that we'll discuss along the way. We're going to look at the number patterns for the next 2 weeks. We're going to look at the movement of the planets and the movement of the stars, and we will also look at a little bit of space weather. So the past weeks, so up to this point, so in the beginning of May, like around May, up until May about 17th or so today, we've been looking at where do we want to focus our time and our energy, and what is it that we value? What qualities do we see as important to highlight in ourselves, and what to look for perhaps or support in others? And these things reveal our personal resources, what we have to work with and how we want to apply those resources to life. And so leading up to the 11th, we may have been reconsidering some things. The 11th was the first quarter moon in Leo. And so we may have been looking at some choices that we made previously and reevaluating how that would look in our day-to-day life and what that would mean on a longer term scale. So our ideas, our projects, intentions, they probably underwent some kind of adjustment and refinement in this period of time that we just experienced. And we also, in this past week, have felt a shift in driving us to nurture something and perhaps maybe feeling a little bit protective of it. And this heightened drive for security will actually be with us through the month of May and through the month of June. And this is that Mars in Cancer influence. Mars moved into Cancer on the 15th of May. And so the past few weeks, that's what we've been looking at. And now looking ahead, tomorrow on the 18th, we have a full moon. And looking at the chart of the full moon and the planets, and then looking at the movement of the other planets and then all the number codes and how they all play together, the next couple of weeks is a time of mystery and finding our spiritual stability. And so with this full moon on the 18th, tomorrow, it's in the sign of Scorpio, and it's at 27 degrees. And the name of this moon is the flower moon, this moon, the full moon in May. And this is a representation of the mystery and the beauty of flowers, really, and of life, and the transformation that is undergone from bud to flower to seed. And so it's about looking at the whole of things. If we look at a flower and we look at it in its entirety and take it all in, it's this beautiful thing. And if we were to start to pull it apart piece by piece by piece, it would have we'd have a different experience with it. We would see it differently. It wouldn't have the beauty of it as a whole, in a whole. So it's like all these little pieces, right, of us make up our whole, make up the beauty of our whole. And so this full moon on the 18th will be illuminating those things. And it's in the sign of Scorpio, as I mentioned, and the polarity of Scorpio is Taurus. And of course, a full moon is an opposition between the sun and the moon, and that's why the moon is so lit up, because the sun is shining on it, and then that's being reflected back at Earth. The sun is in Taurus, and the moon is in Scorpio. And those are polarities of each other. They both are fixed signs. They're steady and sometimes slow to change, but Scorpio is about transformation, and that's an important element with this moon. The other thing with this polarity is it's about abundance and stability and resources. And the Taurus sun that we've all been feeling, these since the sun moved into Taurus in April, the Taurus influence is stability on its own. It's as its own. It contains its own stability and security. And the Scorpio stability is through merging, merging with others, merging with the divine, merging with whatever it is that is the focus. In that time, there's this Scorpio has this merge, and that's how it gains its stability. And so we've got this concept of the stability of Taurus and the stability of Scorpio having different qualities, but both containing the same desire, the desire for that abundance and stability. And through this, Taurus is about growth and gaining stability through growth and growing, and Scorpio is about transformation and transforming and finding stability through that transformation, which is very powerful. They're both receptive signs. So in this full moon, there's going to be this feeling of wanting to create a prosperous and stable outcome. And in order to do that, we have to be able to receive and to be receptive. Like when you look at the elements of this polarity, Taurus is earth and Scorpio is water. And when you combine the earth and water, you get mud, which it's what can be used to make bricks. It's what can be used to plant seeds, depending on, how much earth and how much water, there's all these different variables. But when you mix them up, you make water, and that's fertility. You can create stability through that growth or transformation, the growth of plants or transforming the mud into bricks. So there's this longer term growth, especially with this full moon. There's this focus on this stability and abundance and this longer term growth, because Venus is conjuncting Uranus on this day, and they're both in Taurus, the sign of Taurus. And so this is going to be having us look at new ways of finding that stability, of looking at beauty, of interacting with our resources and receiving that feminine quality of being able to receive. It's a lovely full moon, and it has a lot of potent energy because, this polarity is very dynamic in and of itself. And then we also have some really interesting number codes, because the full date for this full moon is May 18th, and if you add 5 plus 1 plus 8 plus 2 plus 0 plus 1 plus 9 to come up with the day number, you get 26 with a root number of 8. If you add 2 plus 6, you get 8. And there we have that 8 again, which is an amplification of the universal month number, which is also 8. It's a 17-8, but they both have the root number of 8, and the 8 has this longevity. It looks like the infinity symbol, right? It's about our resources. It's about power, and as above, so below, the mysteries of the universe coming down to earth and empowering us and allowing us to step into a role of compassionate leadership. And so this full moon day amplifies the whole month, the energy of the month of the 17, well, the root number of 8, and this idea of leaving a legacy. And the 17 in particular is gaining strength through overcoming obstacles. And both the 17 and the 26 have this focus on resources and longevity and the proper use of power, the compassionate use of power. It's this power to benefit mankind. And right now, with this feminine sign of Venus conjuncting Uranus, which is the planet of unexpected, change and innovation, we're looking at a whole new way of looking at power and how power is transforming, before our very eyes, and the masculine feminine dynamic here on the planet. And so there's that powerful double 8 on this full moon day. Then we have another very interesting number code on this full moon day, the 18th of May. The full moon is at 27 degrees of Scorpio, and if you add 2 plus 7, you get 9. And then the 18, you add 1 plus 8, and you get 9. So we have a double amplification of the 9 energy. And the 9 is, let's look at the 27 first. The 27, which is the degrees that the full moon is going to be in Scorpio, it's a humanitarian number. It's loving. It's about compassion and courage. And it's this combination of love and power, and looking at power in a different way, giving without expecting in return, this command and authority, but in a way that is graceful and has humility. And so that's the 27, which adds up to 9. And then we also have the 18, which is going to give us a feeling of having a lot of energy. And now they both add up again to that root number of 9, which is about completions, and it's completing a cycle. And this, which is beautiful, because this full moon is when things are illuminated, when we get to see what the results of what we've planted and nurtured in the previous cycles. And we get to also see what opportunities there might be, that it will also illuminate that as well. And one thing to keep in mind with this full moon, and then also with the 18 energy, is just this high, emotions will be running high. And so we'll want to look out for, on this full moon day and the period around it, we just want to look out for not being over emotional. Even with some of these, with like the 8 energy and the 9 energy to an extent, we want to be careful if we see ourselves feeling pessimistic or intolerant or controlling or using power in a way that doesn't feel in alignment with how we want to impart our legacy on the world. Being mindful if we find ourselves being thoughtless, and then just noticing if we're going into any of these types of habits or tendencies. Just ask if this is honoring the mystery and the beauty in everyone, to create a sense of feeling secure and free in order to transform, ourselves and our world. And so using that image of the flower and the mystery and the beauty in that, and holding that as a reminder, kind of a mental mind's eye reminder of the beauty that can unfold if we allow others to make mud. I know. To to get messy, to use the to create a prosperous and stable outcome in a way that maybe doesn't look like we all expect it to, and that comes a little bit more from, like, Scorpio's got that psychic quality to it, some coming more from the realms of the unseen and creating from that place. And so that launches off the next 2 weeks. That full moon in Scorpio with all those number codes just sets the tone for the next 2 weeks. And then we're moving into the waning moon after this full moon. And this is a time of feeling gratitude, for what was put into place in the previous cycles, what was illuminated, what we learned and saw, and what opportunities came to us and revealed themselves, and what kind of results we had with that full moon. So it's a time to celebrate that and to feel some gratitude. And this is in the week, the days after that full moon. And it's also a time of sharing the what we learned, sharing in the resources and the abundance that we saw, that we might be feeling with this full moon. And it's perfectly actually ties in with the sun moving into Gemini, which is all about communicating and sharing ideas and enjoying that exchange. And so taking some time over this coming week to be in sharing and gratitude with others, with the people around you. Maybe have a nice dinner where everybody just gets together, and whether it's family or friends or soul family, and just enjoy one another. And on that same day, so on the 21st, is when the sun goes into Gemini, and Mercury also goes into Gemini on that day. So we'll have a shift in our communication as well. And that day, the 21, it's a number of truth and that freedom through truth. And so it's a nice reminder, sort of that, or even energy that is being put into motion for our next month with the sun into Gemini, the next time of the sun being in Gemini, that we can communicate through our truth and communicate truth. And during this time, we'll be having a heightened sense of curiosity and interest in all kinds of knowledge, gaining knowledge through media, through conversations, ideally through connecting with our higher self and those knowings. And this is all leading up, so this is the week of the 20th, 21st, 22nd, 23rd or so. And it's all leading up to this, let me just look and see what day it's on, the third quarter moon on the 26th. And the third quarter moon is in this month is in the sign of Pisces. And this is a time, they also call it the last quarter moon, if you've heard it referred to that way. And this is a time of when we start to release, we start to let go in preparation for the balsamic phase and then the new moon. And it's a time to look at where we might need to let things go, cultivate forgiveness, and maybe do some cleaning, actually physically do some cleaning and purge thoughts, feelings, emotions, maybe even, looking at how we're eating and drinking, so that we'll be all prepared when it's time to sow new seeds and set these intentions. The interesting thing about this third quarter, last quarter moon on the 26th is it also, if you add 2 plus 6, it also is in resonance with the universal month number of 8, the root number of 8. So again, we've got this moon, it's at 5 degrees of Pisces, and so things may not be crystal clear. We might be on that day, it's a Sunday, might be feeling a sense of indecision or uncertainty, or with this 5 influence, maybe looking at the past and the future, oscillating in between the two, and feeling like a decision needs to be made, but that it's not clear what the decision is or what decision to make. And so a good use of this energy on this day would be to just take time, or just be in a state of observing and taking it all in, and reminding yourself that you don't need to push. This is not a time to be pushing, and to be open to innovative approaches to looking at things in different ways, and being open to your intuition as our perspective on things is shifting. And other things that to look for would be, paying attention to dreams. If you have dreams around this time, what are the dreams telling you? And if you receive these innermost knowings in this time, what is that pointing you towards? And then after that, we'll be moving into the balsamic phase, and this is a furthering of that letting go, of the clearing out the old, noticing where we have a need for security, as things are shifting and changing. Where is that coming up for us? In what part of our lives? Does it have to do with feeling within ourselves, a security within ourselves, and that's where we get into this spiritual stability and being in the mystery of it all. All right, so let us move on and briefly talk about space weather. So these are unprecedented times for modern society, modern humanity. There are many changes happening on the earth and with the sun that we just haven't experienced for some time. In particular, the magnetic field of the earth has been shifting and moving, and it's also been weakening. Also, the last 3 cycles of the sun have been particularly quiet. The sun has an 11-year cycle where it has its peak maximum, where you see all those bright regions on the sun popping and flaring and storming, and we get a lot of solar energy here on Earth. And then the bottom of that 11-year cycle is the solar minimum, where things quiet down, there's less activity, there are fewer sunspots, and the solar irradiance here on Earth declines. And we are in a cycle that was seen about 200 years ago, where there are quieter and quieter solar cycles. So each 11-year cycle has been quieter and quieter than the one before it. And that's been basically the last 3 cycles. And we're in a solar minimum now on that 3rd cycle. And so some of the things that occur when there's a solar minimum is we actually receive more cosmic rays, because the solar wind from the sun deflects things like gamma rays and other energies that come from deep space, other parts of space. And so we have, right now actually is the modern maximum for cosmic ray influx that we have experienced. So the cosmic rays have a number of influences. It influences the weather. It also influences people and the health of animals and plants, as does the sun. The quieting of the sun also has an effect on climate and weather. And there's also correlations to human consciousness and our nervous systems. And so it's useful to just kind of have a sense of where things are at, for me anyway, and so I thought I'd share it with you. So for this upcoming period of time, we are actually looking to have much quieter solar activity than we have for the last 2 weeks. The last couple of weeks, we were expecting those two active regions that were coming around from the backside of the sun. We were expecting those to bring some solar storming, and in fact, we had quite a bit of solar storming. They were crackling and just sending out all kinds of energy as they were rotating around on the Earth-facing side. In fact, the most recent solar storm, the solar storm occurred around the 14th, was a level G3 solar storm, which is actually the strongest in years. It's very unusual for solar minimum to have this kind of activity. And in the past week, aurora was seen as far south as Wyoming and Colorado in the United States. And so the aurora were making it down all the way down to mid-latitudes. And one of the reasons for this was because on the 14th, a crack opened up in the Earth's magnetic field due to magnetic reconnection. At least that's what they are hypothesizing. So the magnetic charge of the solar storm interacted with the magnetic charge of the Earth's magnetosphere, the Earth's magnetic field, and it created this reconnection, and a crack opened up. And so a solar wind was able to pour in to our atmosphere, and that's where we got these amazing aurora. And so today, so if you're listening to this today on the 17th, we're expected to have about a G2 level solar storm or electromagnetic storm. And so that could bring aurora down into the northern regions, probably not as far as they traveled or were seen on the 14th. And the next couple of weeks, so in about 5 days or so, the solar activity will really quiet down as those two active regions move around to the backside. And that'll be the case for a couple of weeks, 1 or 2 weeks, maybe probably into early June, when we'll see, as long as an active region doesn't flare up, which it doesn't look like it's going to, then it'll be another couple of weeks until we see that activity again. And so this has been a very dynamic time indeed. And now we're moving into a time of intuition and self-discovery, the mysteries of life, the mysteries of all of the pieces of us and how they come together as a whole, and what brings us a sense of feeling secure and stable and tuning in to the more sentimental and emotional aspects of life. So thank you so much for joining us here today on Academy for the Soul Radio. I look forward to getting together with you again in the next show, and in fact getting together live. And until then, may you bask in the beauty and mystery of life here on Earth. Lots of love, and bye-bye for now.